Hey, Carlos Rodella. Welcome to Friday and the Food Tech News Show. What's that look?
I don't know. Hey there, Carlos Rodella, my full name. Hi,
I
I'm
don't
Mike
know.
Wolf.
I almost like toggle back and forth between do I need like a morning drive time DJ voice when we start this thing?
Oh,
Or
yeah,
just,
yeah. And you're listening to the Food Tech
and
News
you're
Show.
live. And we are live. And we don't have a guest this week. People are wondering where the guest is. There is no guest this week. It's just Carlos and I talking about this. We will have a guest next week. And we'll go over some of the stories then. But we have some great stuff lined up today, Carlos.
We sure do, Mike.
One of the things I want to ask our listeners is, do you think Friday's the best day, or are you just, because Carlos, you asked me, should we do this on Thursdays?
Yeah, I think Thursday is more engagement.
We're settling into a groove for the Friday afternoon podcast, but I think you're right. East Coast probably off. They're probably at happy hour right now.
Exactly. So we don't want to bother their happy hour. We want them to join us and engage with the food tech talk. So we might move it to Thursday. What do you all think, who are watching this on replay? Let us know.
Yeah, exactly. Drop us a line. Let us know in the comments. Either way, we're open to suggestions. I do like Fridays, but I do also realize, like you said, Carlos, some people might be off. So, yeah. We have some great stories, and the first one up is a little bit different than the rest of the stories because we almost have a theme. You like the fact we had a theme going, but I added this new story at the top to talk about, and then we'll get into the theme that you want to talk about. But we need to talk about Trader Joe's. That is the story. It's the topic, and it's a title of a story from Taste Magazine that went super viral earlier this month in all the food insider communities. And I was sharing this story with you and talking about it with you, but those of you who are in the audience who listened or read the story, you probably know what happened here, but essentially it's a story about Taste Magazine interviewing, I think, about 5 or 6 founders of small to mid-sized food brands. And all of them basically opened up about the fact that Trader Joe's essentially steals their ideas, essentially. What happens is they will basically ask these food brands to send them their product to test out, maybe come in and meet with them, have them send the recipes over. And they're usually really cool emerging brands. And Trader Joe's will kind of get them all excited about possibly showing up in a Trader Joe's. And then lo and behold, maybe a year later, 2 years later, an exact replica or a pretty close replica of the product shows up under the Trader Joe's brand. We see this on the screen, those watching right now. This is an example of a product from a founder called, her name is Shitra Agrawal. She's a founder of Brooklyn Deli, and she did this really cool roasted garlic. I think it's called Ashar. Is that,
I believe that's how you pronounce it. Yeah.
Achaar. I hope I'm not mispronouncing that. This looks like this really tasty Indian garlic chili sauce. And she was super excited. And then all of a sudden, lo and behold, some of her friends start texting her saying, hey, it looks like your product maybe is in Trader Joe's. She's like, what? No, it isn't.
Jeez.
Right. So how disappointing would that be?
Yeah, this is crazy, especially like when they lead them in saying like, hey, we're excited to talk to you about your product, and people are passionate about their product. And then this happens.
And you know how I'm like a Trader Joe's, I don't want to say fanatic, but I like it. It's a fun place to shop. All their cool little products are tasty and neat. But now this kind of gives me a completely hollow, bad feeling about going into Trader Joe's. It makes me feel like I'm trying products that these guys have essentially ripped off. So it kind of ruined Trader Joe's for me, Carlos.
I know. I have a different feeling about them right now. Especially like, well, I want to know how many products is happening with, right? Like, this is all just a guess at this point, or do we have like definitive answer of like, no, these people are like suing, Trader Joe's?
I mean, this was a pretty good long form story where Taste Magazine looks like they did some real reporting. They said they talked to 5 founders of these food brands, and all of them basically attested the fact that it's an open secret within the consumer packaged food industry that Trader Joe's does this in terms of finding new private label items. I don't know how many, I'm not saying all those Trader Joe's products that you find on the store shelves that we love or something where they stole the idea. I'm sure they have lots of good ideas internally. I'm sure they're basically doing their own spin on a lot of products that have been out there a while.
Yeah.
Um, Not everything is new. So if they come out with like a new nut bar, like they're not really kind of ripping anyone off because that everyone's has their own version of like a protein bar. So, but some of
Yeah.
these kind of trendy new emerging sauces, uh, I could see how like a founder who maybe really had this great inspiration from their family recipe, came from that culinary background, does this, and all of a sudden, like something almost 90% of what they built comes out under a Trader Joe's brand like a year later. That'd be pretty disheartening.
Yeah, especially because like that's what makes your product unique is the fact that it is this kind of specialized food thing, and to have them just kind of take it. It seems crazy to me. Like I'm still baffled by this story. Especially because like you said, both of us are like love that brand and that store, and they always have like really unique, interesting like foodstuffs that I'm like, I want all of these. So I'm gonna look at them a little differently until I have all the facts. I won't, totally judge them and might still go there to get the chocolates and
Let's
different
be honest.
desserts.
We're both probably still going to go there. I'm not going to feel as good about myself as I do that. But
Yeah.
I mean, the reality of the situation is like, unless you go, and you can do this if you go to like farmers markets and find individual operators to buy this. It's hard to find stuff where maybe a big corporate brand hasn't maybe existed and in some way corrupted the food system a little bit.
Well, you know
I
what it
feel kind of
is?
bad. It just seemed like Trader Joe's was an exception. They seemed
Yeah.
like this kind of cool place you could shop. They had cool products, and now even they kind of seem shady.
Yeah. What it reminds me of is, and I'm going to reference Shark Tank a lot on this show, but like when you have people who are working on these products and the sharks, this is an investment show. If you've not seen it, but living under a rock, they're always like, yeah, as soon as you put this and want to go to retail with this, unless you have a lot of money to like, get on shelf space, the big companies are just going to copy you. And they're just going to, either A, you're not going to even get into the shelves because there's so much competition, or B, a huge company will come along and be like, "Hey, let's look at that product. Let's look at the ingredients. Let's copy it." And then just do it huge. So, it's kind of a microcosm or like a version of what happens already, but just kind of at Trader Joe's. Gross.
Yeah, I mean Trader Joe's is known for its private label. You go to Trader Joe's because 80% of the stuff is this like unique Trader Joe's branded product. You go to a
Right.
normal grocery store, if you go to Target, Target tries out a lot of new products. Like I think they brought in Almsom, which is this really cool product from these two sisters out of New York, Asian flavored sauces, but they didn't copycat it. They didn't knock it off. They actually put Almsom's products on the store shelves. I have a feeling that Trader Joe's would have knocked that off and did their own version of that. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a bummer. Makes me kind of feel like maybe I need to de-emphasize Trader Joe's in my kind of shopping rotation, but I think we should get to the theme you're more excited about. So we're going to move on.
Yes,
And I
let's.
think we're going to talk, and every show is going to be about robots, but we're kind of on a roll here with the robots.
We
and
sure are.
and so this next story is about a company called Robomart, which is actually more robot in name, I think, than actual robot. It's this company that is, I think, fairly unique in that they're pushing this concept of essentially an autonomous mobile self-driving storefront. I think the Spoon was maybe the first outlet to write about them. We found them, I think it was at 2018 at CES, and they were on the
Mm.
show floor. And if you, those watching the live stream, that picture of that mobile robot store is exactly what he had, but a miniature version on the floor of CES is basically kind of a replica or a model. And that's what they're going to be rolling out with here and when they go with their autonomous stores. So
This
the
picture
idea
right here
here
for
is,
our audience. Yeah, sorry.
yeah,
This
yeah,
picture
yeah.
for our audience is like a concept one, but it was on their website, I think. So I don't know if it changed based on the thing that you saw at CES.
Well, they have a couple of different stores. So they have their first generation, which were just basically essentially Mercedes Sprinter vans. And they
Mm-hmm.
actually had a driver. And so the original vision always for Robomart was to have these stores that were self-driven, autonomous, and then they would come to where you are in a city or in front of your apartment, and you could pick products up out of their shelf It would sense what you're picked up and then charge you. That original vision obviously would take a while, so they had an intermediate vision to get to market with essentially a Mercedes Sprinter van. There was a driver, but they always said the driver never talks to you. But I
Just
thought
sitting
it's kind
there.
of, yeah,
Never mind
exactly.
me. Yeah.
Don't talk. Don't
Yeah.
remind them you're there. But anyway, so they're kind of an interesting company. They have partnered with a company out of I think maybe Singapore, a company called Pix Moving that essentially is manufacturing the autonomous vehicles.
Right. Yeah. The ones
My
that just
question,
drive themselves.
yeah. My question for you is, do you think this has legs? Do you think this is something that could happen, or do you think this is kind of crazy?
I wrote down a couple notes on it because we've talked about it before on the Spoon. There's a video, if you go to our YouTube channel, of a video of it that we made. I think it depends on the products that the cart sells. You know what I mean? Like, so what is this thing delivering me when it drives by? Because now you use the app, I believe, right? And then it's supposed to just show up, and then you
Yeah,
can get your
yeah.
thing from it.
You
I
hail it. They're trying hard to get that vernacular being used
Yeah,
by their customers. You're hailing a store essentially.
it's like a lift, right? Like I would just go to my phone and get a lift somewhere. Instead, I would go and get this. Now, again, all the things you see in this picture for the video version, I already can get across the street, so I don't need any of that in this kind of setting. But toilet paper, all right, I do need that in a pinch. You know what I mean? Like you need some toilet paper and
But
maybe Advil.
how far is a Walgreens, or how far does
Well,
7-Eleven? 7-Eleven must have toilet paper, right? So
exactly. But then again, 7-Eleven has bad toilet paper. It has like, that very thin, terrible toilet paper. It could have like nice toilet paper. I don't know. I just think it matters on what is in that vehicle for people who already live near grocery stores and 7-Elevens. Now, like we said last episode, if you're in a food desert or you're somewhere where there's literally nothing around you, this is super helpful, right? Like you're in the middle of the woods or you're like just, somewhere there isn't the kind of stuff that this thing could deliver. That's pretty cool. For me, it literally is pointless. Like even the toilet
yeah,
paper, even the Advil, I can get across the street. So for
that's what.
me, it doesn't make any sense that way.
Yeah, Tiffany on YouTube said that would be good in food desert. So it kind of echoes what you say. My
Yeah.
point is, there's I think a autonomous delivery company called Serve. They're one of these sidewalk robot companies, and their catchphrase is "Why deliver a 2-pound burrito in a 2-ton car?" I feel like part of the problem I have with this, and I think it's interesting, is just do we? I don't know how much this is kind of expending in energy to get around. It's probably going to be electric vehicle here, but I surely don't think this Mercedes Sprinter van was. But is this thing like putting out a lot of CO2 to essentially get you your toilet paper when you could
Right.
walk across the street? I don't know.
Yeah. Here's the other thing that I will say though, because when I used to work in companies in buildings, which I don't do right now, and we had a truck come by or, some sort of like food cart thing, and it had like mini donuts that I couldn't get anywhere else. Right. I remember that one here in Seattle. I forgot what it's called, but they were amazing. We all went out and got donuts, right? Because it's a
Yeah.
specialized item. So then if you're talking about Robomart, I think Robomart could partner specifically with local like places. Almost think of what do we always talk about in the show? The when they just show up somewhere. What's it called? What's it called when
That thing that shows
the
up somewhere, the
restaurant
drone.
that just shows up, that's like a only for a little limited time?
Oh, pop-ups.
Pop-ups, right? So think of a pop-up in these Robomarts. Then it makes us and then it makes sense. I don't know if they talked about it like tacos or something that is specialized. That seems to make a lot of sense, especially for businesses, right?
Yeah.
Robomart shows up.
Yeah.
The manager like hailed the Robomart because they're giving all this cool food away for lunch for a retreat or something. I don't know. Maybe it works there.
So this is the only company that I know that's really pushing this idea of a mobile store front. And to that end, they're really trying to catalyze the space. And that's really what this news story was about and why we're talking about them again. So they created this organization called the Autonomous Retail Collective. Pretty cool name, I guess. Not quite a consortium, not an association, but a collective. And the whole group's aimed at accelerating this development of these self-driving shops, the self-hailed stores, if you will. And it's really a collection of the partner ecosystem for Robomart. So it's not quite your industry association, but I feel like they're trying to do the right things. I just feel like my question is this space going to actually happen? Because do we need this thing? And I feel like we'll see. I got to figure out what the right use cases are for this, because it seems like there's a lot of ways that the people can get stuff than a self-driving storefront. So
Yeah, it's the use cases as well as the delivery method. And like we've said on the show before too, I think, me personally think, like all this stuff will arrive. Like we will have autonomous delivery, we'll have more robots, all that stuff. It's just timing, right? It's just too early for the autonomous consortium, because how many autonomous things are happening?
did you ever see that story? We covered them a couple times at the Spoon, a company called Pipe Dream Labs. And I interviewed the founder on the Spoon podcast maybe 6 months ago, but we haven't talked about it here on the Food Tech News Show. It's this idea of essentially creating underground delivery, so that it isn't like stuff going over on cars or via drone. It's actually going through pipes underground. It almost sounds a little steampunk, right?
Oh
Like
yeah, you mean like
you're
those
sending,
little pneumatic tubes?
yeah, it's like whatever Elon Musk's underground pneumatic tube company is. Um, but the idea is essentially they're kind of riding on the city infrastructure, where they will basically put these delivery pipes next to like other underground piping or whatever. They
Mm.
have an installation in an Atlanta suburb, and why I kind of paid attention to them is they actually had Jeff Bezos. They had a picture of Jeff Bezos checking out the product. So I'm thinking, I knew that Jeff Bezos and Amazon always had a patent on an underground delivery system. So maybe start wondering, is this something that Amazon is exploring? It sounds kind of crazy, but if you did it in like a managed community, like say you did it in a master plan community, one of these big 1,000 unit condo places in Florida or something, it probably makes a lot of sense. You could
I know.
deliver stuff maybe to people's houses. I don't know.
It could. It's just that, like, I remember taking that underground tunnel. Is
Yeah.
Elon the one who made the one in Vegas?
Oh yeah, it was super slow.
I was like, did I need to do this? It
Yeah,
went like five minutes.
and it's just like a bunch of Teslas going down a one-lane road underground. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Anyone who's actually it's called I think the company is the Boring Company built the tunnel, which is another Elon Musk company, and it's basically a long circular tube underground. There's two tunnels right next to each other, and these Teslas are just going in a circle underground. And I've only ever ridden in it because they were giving free rides at CES. I think that's probably why you rode in it as well, right?
I was at TwitchCon, yeah, and we had to
Ah.
take it to get to a certain place, and it was so hot out that I was like, "Yes, I'll go in there." But yeah, besides the air conditioning and the fact that I was at a convention and I had to get somewhere quickly, there'd be no reason for me to ever take it. So
Someone says
yeah,
it's
the
called the
loop.
loop. It's called the
Yeah,
loop.
that's right. Thank you, chat.
Thank you,
All right,
chat.
well,
All
let's
right.
move to a
This next
real
story,
robotic story.
I feel like this next story is your one you're gonna have a lot to say about. And this is a fun story that caused what I call a big hullabaloo. Is that a word?
A hullabaloo, a
Amongst
fervor, a
a
fervor,
fervor, not kerfuffle, not a kerfuffle, a
maybe a
hullabaloo.
kerfuffle. Yeah.
Where a lot of press freaked out about this thing, and I have my reasons for why I think they freaked out. But it was essentially someone in New York City went into a fried chicken shop, and they found a virtual cashier. So essentially, what it was, and if those watching live can see a picture of a virtual cashier. This isn't actually the restaurant that it was at. This is like another solution,
It's
but
similar. Yeah.
it's similar. But this employee, I think he's a Google employee named Brett Goldstein, walked into this restaurant, saw that the person manning the register to check him out was essentially a person piping in from the Philippines, and that's how you'd pay for it. Someone like zooming in, they called it zooming in, and all the headlines I saw, someone cashier zooms in from the Philippines, and he did a tweet thread about this, in which he called the experience insane. And he said it only takes a short hop to imagine the near future where this is an AI avatar, which I don't disagree with that. This is not new technology. There's a company that has been doing this called Byte Ninja for about 3 years. They
Mm.
have the technology, and they were focused initially on drive-through cashiers. So you would go to a Burger King or a McDonald's, and I don't know if those are the stores they're deployed at, but you would actually have the person you're talking to would maybe be a working mom, someone like myself who has a side hustle. I might be sitting in Seattle, but I'm checking someone out in a drive-through in Kansas City,
Hmm.
all virtually. Makes sense. It actually part of the pitch was this idea, and you got the picture up there now. So that's actually what he saw. I think that's his
Oh, this
picture.
is
So
the one.
that's the
Okay, yeah.
cashier. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's the cashier for those watching online. That's the experience he saw. And he wrote about this, and then all these news organizations picked it up and said, I think the New York Post had the most sensational one where they said, cashier zooms in from the Philippines and they want a tip. They're freaking out about the fact they wanted a tip. So what's your thoughts? Is this like a big deal? Why is everyone freaking out about this?
Well, oh my goodness, there's so much to say about it. The To kind of iterate what I just said earlier is I think that in the future, it does seem to make a lot of sense for different types of delivery, like holograms. I want a hologram to like take my order. Like I see the future being like this, but right now, again, we're in between, so it feels clunky. And I think that's probably the most like why people are in a kerfuffle is because it just seems like why? Like why not just have a person there? And I guess I'm still asking why, because like why do you outsource? It just seems like outsourcing at that point, right? It's less about like ease or like making something better. It just seems like outsourcing.
I mean, I think one of the reasons by Ninja, or one of the pitches that by Ninja had was, hey, you can essentially have someone who is working a 6-hour shift, but they're constantly working. If you look at a traditional drive-through, someone might be working the drive-through and they're basically busy from like 11 to noon to 1. Then there's a lot of standing around time. But if you have someone who's working, they could be doing a drive-through in Seattle and then like a shift to like they're going to do the one in the Midwest and then they're going to do one on the East Coast, whatever, depending on the time zones are. It could actually go the opposite way. So you could fractionalize the worker and you could distribute that cost across a number of stores
Interesting.
rather than just having someone like work at one store. I think honestly, the first layer of employee that's going to be disintermediated or whatever the term would be by technology is going to be the person taking the order. We're already seeing with AI at drive-throughs.
Yeah.
At least this is employing a person. It's not an AI because a lot of I think it's Wendy's actually has their own AI that they've actually developed for drive-throughs. So at
Yeah.
least this is employing a person. I think the reason people freaked out is this was a person from the Philippines, not an American worker. And I think there's this whole obviously tension about people taking jobs from Americans. And I think it's kind of implied in the freak out. I may be
Yeah.
overreading into this, but if this was like a young white college student or just young American college student, I don't think there'd be as big a freak out, quite honestly.
I think okay, so thinking about it for a minute now. First off, outsourcing, like I said, is the issue. Like I think just because you can get somebody to do something cheaper doesn't mean you should. And also that idea, like you said, fractionalizing the work, that seems kind of terrible for the worker because then they're just
Yeah, yeah.
a nonstop doing.
There's that. They're constantly
There's
working
that.
for 8 hours.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, because speaking of someone who's done this work, so I did fast food for a while and I did restaurant stuff. There's two issues with this that I actually just thought of. One is that you brought up, which is fractionalized is a cool word, but it's a terrible process for the person, the actual worker,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's like a lot of you hope that you have 11 to 1 is like your busy time, then you have a break. So that's bad for the worker. Secondly, and probably more importantly, minus where the person's calling in from or zooming in from, you have to be on location, understand food service. I know this again firsthand. Like, are the fries cold right now? Are like, what's our situation with the milkshakes? Like, what's going on in front of the counter? Like, we have a long line, so we can't spend a lot of time with this takeout order. So there's too much happening in a physical location for this to work. Now, AI just taking an order actually makes more sense. I know it's displacing workers, but those workers in
Mm.
the fast food place are still got a job because they got to make sure all that stuff happens. And that's why I think that's not that bad. Like, you just take my order, AI or whatever, that's fine. If I'm hitting a button, by the way, in New York, they do this. A lot of places do this. You just hit it on your table and say what you want. I don't think there's that much different to that. But I don't think it works for actual too much doing the job because there's just too much stuff that I think a human needs to do. Unless they're a robot, an actual humanoid robot, you know?
Yeah. I think with a lot of the AI systems at the drive-through, they're the first point of contact, but any sort of deviation or problem, it escalates to a human. So I don't see why we couldn't necessarily have these first point of contact workers um, taking the order. If there's a question or a problem, then you hand it off to like an in person in the store. So I see what you're saying. Like there does need to be some of that on location understanding of like, hey, we're out of lettuce or whatever. We're out of the
Right,
chicken.
right.
But maybe I don't see why that can't be communicated. So I don't know. I think we'll get this. They'll get this figured out. I think the idea of decoupling a person from their physical place of work has happened in every other line of work because we're all the office workers are working remotely anyway, as we saw during the pandemic. I think we start to see decoupling of physicality, physical location, and being present in a location for jobs like this as well. So I think that's just what this is, and I do think an evolution of that is ultimately like an AI human replacement story as well. I think that's kind of the further down the line. So
Well, along that line, I wanted to put this into our story segment. Is I use AI art a lot on this show just to kind of have fun. So I decided to here's some options of things that could work potentially in fast food. Here's a virtual um, person taking an order or delivering an
and by
order.
the way, this is the most popular segment on the audio podcast when you show your AI art. They
Okay, they
love
do
this.
love it, right? But what they'll do is they'll
Yeah,
go to our YouTube and they'll watch the YouTube
yeah,
shorts or
yeah.
go to our TikTok, go to our Reels. We can obviously react to what we're seeing, but this is like
Oh
a
my
screen
gosh.
of a
Look at
woman.
this photo.
Well, you actually have to use words to describe it. So, anyways, there's a woman on a screen, a virtual woman taking an order, which, by the way, this is AI, so it always does weird things. She's got like a plate of fries and then fries on top of the fries. That doesn't make any sense. Here's another version that could work.
She's two
Again,
fisting. She got two fisting the fries, or she got like one on both
double
hands.
package of fries, and the woman
Yeah.
who's on the screen, a virtual person calling in,
Why
has a
does she have a
hamburger on
hamburger on
her
her
head.
head?
I
Of
don't
course she
know.
does.
And this
Well,
is the
that's a
last one.
talent right there. I think if you could balance a hamburger on your head, I think you'll keep your job because that's
You should keep
pretty.
your job for that. Yes. This one doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense. I just typed in like AI art. I said, give me like robotic, avatar taking an order. Looks like just a humanoid robot, which kind of scares me.
When are we going
Uh,
to publish? When is the book of Carlos's AI food art coming out?
we'll make a compilation. That's what we'll
I
do.
feel like we should. I feel like we should.
Moving on.
This is like it's Friday, and why not end Friday with a fun, weird story? And this is a weird
Yes.
story. And so
Oh
if we were
boy.
to ask people watching in, just to kind of ask you, what do you think of this robot? You're probably thinking right now, what's super lifelike?
Yeah.
It looks just like a person. Well, it looks like it looks like a robot. It looks like a humanoid, but it looks like a very realistic humanoid.
And I have a
By the way,
video.
can we show the video?
Yeah, let's show the video, which I'll do right now. And again, you can watch the replay of this on YouTube and Twitch. So if you want to see this, here's the video I got from Instagram. It's a pretty realistic robotic waitress. Look at this. I mean, I
You know
didn't
what
think
this
we'd come
is?
this far so
Yeah, yeah.
quickly.
So let's spoiler. This is a real person. It's a woman who owns a restaurant. It's acting like a robot. This is in China,
Ba-dum-bum-ba-dum.
and I feel like she's that type of performance of what you see on the street, like in San Francisco or like in Vegas, where they have a hat
Yeah,
down there, and
yeah.
there you can. I threw $1 in the hat because she's pretty good, but it's weird that she's like for her own restaurant, she's deciding to actually be a robot, and I wonder if she thinks she's fooling people because I don't know. I think I might be confused if she came out. I'd go, "Is this a robot?
Yeah.
Do you
I mean,
would you think it's a robot or do you think it's a human?"
I mean, come on, not yet. No, I think it's a human. I don't think we're there yet when it comes to tricking people. But I'll say this. This is an angle that I don't think you maybe are aware of, but are you aware of the craze called being an NPC on TikTok?
I don't want to ask what NPC stands for.
Non-player character in a video game. Come on. Do you
Oh,
not know that?
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So on TikTok specifically, people have started becoming NPCs. So they act like an NPC would in a video game where they're just kind of
Hmm.
moving back and forth and they'll say the same thing over and over again, like, "Hi, how are you today? Would you like a sandwich?" Like that. This feels like that to me. It feels like a new generation of NPCs out in the wild. And for our listeners and viewers, if you don't know what that is, there you go. There's some fun rabbit hole to go down. NPCs on TikTok. I can't believe you haven't looked at them. They're everywhere.
Well, I know on your TikToks you interact, you do some video game TikToks, and you've interacted with NPCs and kind of had some fun with them, but also like I think people that are maybe playing in the game and they're having side conversations. Haven't you done that as well?
Yeah, I mean that's a huge part of video games, but like this is actually like more weird than anything else. I'm trying to find a picture of one real quick because like people interact with them in live, like live TikTok, and they'll actually like give them money and stuff. It's really weird. Anyways, this this
Someone
this waitress
on
reminds me
YouTube,
of it.
someone says this is how we die. This is definitely like a
I'm trying to quickly get a picture. You can look it up yourself. It's ridiculous, but yeah, I think this is interesting that they're doing it. By the way, it'll bring in customers. Like this will bring in customers. People will be like, "I want to see the robotic lady."
when we
Right?
first started writing about robot restaurants at the Spoon, like almost 8 years ago, the when you would Google robot restaurant, the one that always came up was this one in Japan is actually a show, and I think it may still be there, but it's basically a bunch of people. It's like Teatro Zinzani if you're in Seattle, right? It's like one of these
Mm-mm.
almost like Vegas like shows,
Yeah,
and it's basically a bunch of performers pretending they're robots and like really theatrical and stuff. This feels like a little bit like that, but this is actually a little bit kind of weirder, quite honestly, because I feel like she's actually maybe trying to make you think she's a robot, like a
yeah,
really realistic robot.
yeah. But again, if it brings in the customers, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. It's maybe part theater, part kind of weirdness, but
It is
I feel
like
like
it's
she
like
can't do. I feel like she can't do this all day. This must be like maybe. Hey, Hey, boss, you gonna go put on the robot uniform tonight? Yeah, I'm gonna give it a half an hour.
I'll do
You
it for a
can't be
little
doing this
bit.
all. You can't be doing this every day. That would be
No, no, no.
exhausting.
It's gonna be tiring. Although that being said, I found a picture. This is the TikTok craze, and it's everybody. Like one person like does Spider-Man, and they do it for hours, and they get tons of money too, which is really weird. So it's a weird world.
It's a weird world. All right. Well, that's all the stories we have. We have a fun, weird one to end the week on, and
Oh,
we
I
will
have
be
one more
back
thing.
next week with the guest. I'm not done. Oh yeah,
Wait,
you got something else to show us?
I
All
have
right.
something else. Hold on. I have, and we have to stop saying our visual or for people watching because everybody just needs to watch us. That's all. But here is some images I made really quickly. I said, speaking of this, like, will we have an actual robotic waitress? So here's one which is very creepy because it's for our audio listeners, it's a human head, but then robotic arms.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's weird. This one, 3 arms, serving drinks seems helpful,
Yeah.
right?
I like a third arm.
Like we could use
Sure.
this.
If I was a server, I'd definitely want a third arm.
Yeah, and I think this could help people get their drink. And this is a special thing for Friday show. I asked AI Art to make 2 robots doing a podcast about food tech. We're replaced. We've been replaced. They're gonna do it
Beep
for us
boop.
now.
Beep boop.
Beep. Wait, why do they have to? They can't just talk normal. Beep boop. That's all they could say.
Now for our next story.
Yeah, wait.
That's
Let's
what they'll
just
say.
let's end it with that in robot voice. So, Michael, that was a great podcast.
We'll all talk to you next week.
Thanks for viewing us and listening. Please subscribe and watch
Oh
our
my
YouTube
gosh.
and Twitch.
This is bad. Beep boop.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.